All right. Well, let's jump right in. So happy to have all of you. I'm Joanne Harrington. I'm the Superintendent of Education for Central States Conference. And today we're going to talk about the church's obligation, the church's privilege, and the church's reward. And we're calling for all advocates of Christian education. We need advocates for Christian education. And this is a specific training, church officer training for home and school association leaders. That's one of the ministries listed in our church manual. And it's also for anyone who is interested in our youth and helping our youth. So let's go right on to our next slide. Have you seen this child? You may not recognize his name, but you probably recognize the news story that is associated with this little boy. Last week, he and his mother were riding in their car to school, and all of a sudden, the waters that have been rising there in California because of all of the rain started to swamp their car. And they thought they were safe at first, but the water kept rising and rising and rising. And so the mother got alarmed and she said, "We have to get out of this car because if it rises anymore, the car is going to start to float and we will have no control over where we're going." And so she told little Kyle to leave everything. He said, "Just leave your backpack. Don't worry about anything. All we need to do is get out of this car." And so Kyle and his mom got out of the car. She was holding her cell phone and that had her ID and all of that in it. And then she grabbed Kyle and was holding tightly to him. But if you've seen on television the water raging there in California from all of this rain that they're getting, um, her hand became slippery and she started to lose her grasp on him and lose her footing, and so she was grabbing a tree with one arm and grabbing Kyle with the other, and unfortunately the debris in the water and the rushing water swept him away. They are still looking for Kyle, and they're worried because the creek that was flowing through their town there in California has now joined a river, and then the river leads to the Monterey Bay. I don't know if you've been to Monterey Bay, California. I have. And what Monterey Bay leads to is the ocean. And so the sheriff's office there is still searching for Kyle, and people are still keeping an eye out for him, but there's not much hope that he may have survived this horrific circumstance. And so possibly, we hope not, but possibly Kyle has been swept away. I hate to start on such a sad note as that, but I was reading a statement not long ago that reminded me of this incident. And it's from Counsels to Parents, Teachers, and Students. And it says, "If ever we are to work in earnest, it is now. The enemy is pressing in on all sides like a flood. Only the power of God can save our children from being swept away by the tide of evil. The responsibility resting upon parents, teachers, and church members to do their part in cooperation with God is greater than words can express." Just as we think about someone being swept away in a flood, how tragic it would be. It would be even more tragic if we lose our young people to the tide of evil that is in our world today. So, today we're going to talk about the job of the home and school leader. It's your privilege, it's your responsibility as a leader, as it is with all of us who are adults, to safeguard the education of our young people. So let's talk a little bit about the job of the home and school leader. What does the home and school leader do? I'm going to say it depends. There's really not one total answer because some of you are in communities that do not have church schools. Some of you are in communities that have church schools. So there's kind of a difference in what the home and school leader will do in both instances. But in general, let's read this definition. In churches that do not have an Adventist school in their community, the job of the home and school leader is to rally spiritual support, encouragement, and also tangible support from the church to its community of scholars and their families. The home and school leader and members of that committee are to foster an environment through which students may achieve their highest educational and personal potential, thereby glorifying God and enriching the lives of those in their community. Here are some things that I came up with and also borrowed. I want to give credit to one of the churches that I found online. They had some ideas because there is no description for the home and school leader where there isn't a school. So we needed to kind of come up with some things. So here are some things that I think that the home and school leader should be doing, even if you don't have a church school in your area. So let's look at supplies. Collect and provide school supplies for students in the pre-K, kindergarten level, all the way through high school. For support, provide various modes of educational support for students at all levels, and that's going to depend on your congregation. What is it that your students need? Rewards, recognize and reward students at all levels for their academic achievement. And then under Connect, support and encourage scholars from the local congregation who are studying away from home. I had the experience of being away from home, both for academy for my sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school, and then away at college. Now, when I was at college, I wasn't very far away, but there were some students from our congregation who were attending schools from far away. And my mom happened to be, she wasn't the home and school leader, but she just happened to always be interested in education and in students, the young people of the church. And so she would send care boxes to those who were away in college or in academy. And sometimes it would be something fun like cookies or, things like that. But then other times it would be practical things like lotion, soap, things that they could use in their dorm rooms. So I think it's important that the church continue to connect with students who are away from home because students can get pretty homesick and miss their congregations, miss their families, and hearing from someone is very encouraging. Amicus, that is the Adventist ministry to college and university students. So that's an acronym for that, Amicus. That is meeting the spiritual, intellectual, and social needs of Seventh-day Adventist students on secular campuses. So here in Lincoln, where I live, we have 3 educational institutions. We have Wesleyan University, we have the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and we have Union College. And so we get a lot of students here at my home church, Allen Chapel, who are here studying. They may be older students with families and all of that, or here on their own, but older students, and some are working on their PhDs, some are working on other degrees and certifications. And then we have the students at the bachelor's level who are here working. And we even have some students at the academy, parents who want their children to have Christian education at the academy. And so they're here in town. So Amicus, you can go to their website and find out more about that. Funding, develop a plan for a scholarship fund to benefit students who need help with tuition. And then be a facilitator, assist students and their families in submitting applications to the Central States Conference three-way scholarship, if that is applicable. And then acknowledge the service of educators and others associated with schools like paras, the maintenance facility people, those types of things, subs, in the church and or the community each academic year. So when there is a church school in the area, what does the home and school leader do? So for those that have a school with which the church is affiliated, there is a quick start guide that can be found at Advent Source. And so I'm going to leave this up for just a moment or two and click. You can click on the QR code with your phone if you have a QR. So first of all, before I do that, I want you to know that the job that you do as an advocate for Adventist Christian education. Now, before the home and school leader, I'm kind of talking about Christian education in general. Okay, so whether our students are at a secular school or whether they're at a church school, we're trying to support them as a church. Now we're talking about supporting the Adventist school that may be in your area, or in the case of academies and colleges in other areas. Why can we be confident in Adventist Christian education? Pardon me. So, first of all, let's talk about the fact that the Adventist educational system is second only to the Catholic system of schools in the world. We are the largest Protestant educational system in the world. And there's a reason for that. Why is that? It's not just blind loyalty, blind faith in, oh, well, if we're Adventists, we have to send them to an Adventist school. It's not just that. Yes, there is a loyalty to Adventist education in some places. It's very, very strong. But there are reasons why, some compelling reasons why parents send their children to Adventist schools. The first one, in single and multi-grade classrooms, remediation and enrichment activities can be more discreetly arranged than in traditional classrooms. Another reason why parents are choosing Adventist education, and we can have confidence as leaders, home and school leaders, in promoting Adventist education, is that students who attend Seventh-day Adventist schools are more likely to attend college. We have an over 85% graduation rate from our high schools, our academies, and over 80% of graduates complete college degrees. And so statistically, this is compared to 66% of high school students graduating college and 14% of public high school students completing college degrees. And so we do have a high success rate of people going on to higher education. We know that college is not the only option. And I think that our ASI, if you're familiar with ASI, that's the business part where business people come together to share the gospel and all of that. And we can see lots of people who have been very, very successful. They may not have followed the college track, but Adventist education also is like head, hands, and heart. And so the hands part, we have lots of craftspeople who are in various trades and businesses and contribute to spreading the gospel as well as our college graduates. And so whichever way you go, whether it be in a more mechanical or craftsperson, tradesperson role, or if you go with the college track type thing, either way, our graduates who are coming out of our schools, out of our academies and our grade schools, are successful later in life. Cognitive Genesis is a 4-year study that incorporated 30,000 students. I was still teaching when Cognitive Genesis began, and in fact, the Alyssa Keto, Dr. Alyssa Keto, used to be the chair of our St. Louis Unified School. And Professor Keto is the one who began Cognitive Genesis out there at La Sierra University. It was a 4-year study of 30,000 students enrolled in Adventist schools across North America. And the findings were that students in Seventh-day Adventist schools achieve an average of half a grade above the predicted ability in all subjects. And that's pretty telling right there. That's a great statistic. Also, most Seventh-day Adventist schools have a low student-teacher ratio. That means the number of students per teacher um, is low. This allows for more individualized attention, as Sister Jessica was talking about, and instruction. I think that this is an important thing. Now, when I was teaching, even in public schools, the most I had was 22, but I had colleagues that had 30 students in their room. It is very difficult to really, really help and teach 30 people in your classroom, all with different needs, even when you're grouping. And even with my 22 first graders, I had 4 or sometimes 5 reading groups because of all of the disparities in ability and skill. So if you have 12 to 15 students, it's wonderful. Some schools, some of our smaller schools may have 9 students in a classroom. That's a wonderful number to be able to give some individual help. So low teacher student ratio is an important thing, I think, in education in general, and it's something that we usually have in Adventist education for single and for multi-grade classrooms. The North American Division Office of Education has developed excellent, high quality, standards based materials for all classrooms. The curriculum is designed, and here's the important part, so that the students are constantly connected with Christ and the possibilities He has for each life. So we see God in everything. In mathematics, we see God, a God of order, a God that the genius is shown in. We look at a pine cone, and you see the swirl there of that pine cone. There's a mathematical formula for that, and it's just God is evident in everything. God is evident in the Bible, in the writing of the Bible. So we can study poetry in the Bible. We can study history in the Bible. Uh, we can study all types of things coming from a Christian viewpoint, a worldview. Seventh-day Adventist schools focus on preparing students not for just for success in this life, but for eternity. The ultimate goal of each teacher is to see each student in a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And I know that our teachers who are on here today could tell you story after story of opportunities they've had to connect students with Jesus Christ. And that is the goal and the aim of Adventist education. So, what are the duties? Let's go through those very quickly as we are coming close to our ending time. First of all, if you are the home and school leader at a church, you would plan meetings. Now, where we have several churches, we usually have one person who is kind of the leader of the leaders. And so there'd be a home and school association in church A and B and C. There'd be a leader there. And out of those 3 churches, let's say, then one of those is designated as the home and school leader of all the other leaders and would be represented there at the school in planning meetings. They would get with the other leaders in the area, plan meetings. But if it's just one person, one school, it's their job to plan for regular home and school meetings for parents, teachers, and other interested church members. Careful thought should go into setting a time and place of meeting that will be convenient for the majority of the members. So that would usually take place at the school, ideally, because it'd be nice to have the children share some of the things that they're learning, or have a little short performance of a song, a poem, a recitation, or show their work that they've been doing. Maybe it would be a science experiment experiments that they're doing. They've had a science fair or something like that. Who knows? It can vary from month to month. Their duty is also to promote Adventist education. So you want to try to assure that every child in your church has the opportunity to attend an Adventist school, if possible, and show support for the principles of Christian education. The third thing that you would be doing is raising funds. So every school needs money, every public school needs money, every Christian school needs money. If it's a school, trust me, they need money because supplies and materials are going up every single year. And the Home and School Association can enhance the regular academic program. They can raise funds for things like audiovisual aids, library resources, books, things like that. Some home and school associations even hold a book fair every year so that parents can come in and see books to buy for their children to read at home, because we know that reading at home is also important as well as at school. Maybe it's for technology, maybe it's for playground equipment. So that's one of the jobs of the home and school leader. To communicate with the church. So several times during this school year, you or someone you appoint should appear before the entire congregation to promote Christian education and create enthusiasm for the work of the association. So sometimes members who don't have children in church school, they may be willing to help support either by monies, contributing to someone's tuition or contributing to the scholarship fund, or by volunteer work, sometimes also gifts in kind they may be giving, especially if they're business owners or something like that. They may have a business that would contribute something to the school, and those would be called gifts in kind. And encourage both parents and teachers. The division manual says that parent education classes need to be offered to teach parents how to instill right character traits and lead children toward heaven. So that might be through a speaker, it might be through a seminar that you hold, or sometimes at AY meetings, or maybe even a specially called home and school meeting, and say, we're going to talk about character training, or we're going to have this speaker come in and talk about character training, or maybe specific things. We're going to talk about bullying. We're going to talk about this or that. It's interesting to me that just about any type of job that you want to do, there's some type of training that's involved with it, right? But anybody can just jump in and become a parent and bring up an actual living human being without anybody ever teaching them how to do that. So it's not always instinctual. Sometimes people need help with knowing how to deal with certain issues associated with children. Planning events to honor the teachers in your school will be a great encouragement to the Christian teachers who work with the children, and encourage the teachers to better themselves by attending seminars and retreats, which automatically happens through the Office of Education, but it doesn't hurt to encourage them or make them aware. This is the quote I read before, and I just want to reiterate it, because only the power of God, says the prophet, can save our children from being swept away by the tide of evil. Are we connecting our children with the power of God? That's the question. That's the obligation of the church. Okay, the privilege of the church. These are some quotes. In the highest sense, the work of education and the work of redemption are one. For in education, as in redemption, other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Also, she says in education, page 17, every human being created in the image of God is endowed with a power akin to that of the Creator. Individuality, power to think and to do. It is the work of true education to develop this power, to train the youth to be thinkers and not mere reflectors of other men's thought. And I'm telling you, what are we seeing today? Look at the media. Somebody looks at some channel, whether it be to the right, to the left, I don't know, but they just quote whatever that commentator is saying. You look on Facebook, people are saying things over and over. They're not even thinking about what it is that they're saying. They're just quoting what they heard or what seems to subscribe to their own thoughts and feelings. They're not having original thought. And our country is getting kind of swept away on this tide of just, okay, somebody said this or somebody thinks this, and so I'm going to parrot that and promote that on whatever social media source I have for amongst my friends. We want to have thinkers. We want to have people who are thinking also with the mind of Christ. So, in true education, we want to train our youth to be thinkers and not mere reflectors of other men's thoughts. True education means more than the perusal of a certain course of study. It means more than a preparation for the life that now is. It has to do with the whole being and with the whole period of existence possible to man and humanity, we mean. It is the harmonious development of the physical, the mental, and the spiritual powers. It prepares the student for the joy of service in this world and for the higher joy of wider service in the world to come. That's kind of a thought. I always had this picture of heaven or of the new earth as just being this, oh, we're going to do all of these things that we want to do. We're going to build houses and we're going to plant gardens and we're going, and yes, the Bible says we're going to do that. But it says wider service. I'm not even sure what that means. I don't know what it would be. But I know that if we have students who have service on their minds, not just indulgence and all I can get for myself, return on investment. I've got to get an education so I can have a great job, have a great house, have a great spouse, have a great car, and have 2.5 children who are great children. It's not about that. Although those temporal blessings may attend your work and are not wrong and are a blessing, that's not the point. The point is, what are you contributing? Let us keep track of our young people. Let us get to know them. Let us support them, love them, nurture them, and just let them see the love of Jesus through us. Let's bow our heads for prayer.